Republicans just got stunned in the House of Representatives as Democrats took control of 2 Republican-led hearings and 1 Republican-led Senate hearing where Republicans were trying to spread their MAGA propaganda. One hearing involved the new January 6th subcommittee that the MAGA Republicans created in order to gaslight America into believing that January 6th was this peaceful day and there was an FBI insurrection and that there really wasn't insurrectionists and that the January 6th committee itself was one massive hoax, all of the Donald Trump lies. Well, the Democratic leaders in that committee, people like Congressmember Jamie Raskin and people like Congressmember Jared Moskowitz and others, they took control and they exposed what the MAGA Republicans were doing. They really hijacked the hearing, these Democrats, in a good way, and they just let loose on these MAGA Republicans. As Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren explains, take a look at this new subcommittee to gaslight America about January 6th and the hearing that they were holding yesterday. Sitting with the notepad in the House Republicans' reserved seating is Stewart Rhodes. Look at him right there, founder of the Oath Keepers. Just absolutely shameful. And then the other hearing that was being held was a hearing in the Judiciary Committee in order to give the stone slab industry immunity from a very serious life-threatening disease called silicosis, which is a serious and irreversible lung disease caused by inhaling fine silica dust from these stones, leading to inflammation, scarring, or fibrosis, and difficult breathing, and it often impacts workers on jobs like construction and mining. It could kill people. I mean, this is a serious life-threatening lung disease that kills people. And the MAGA Republicans right now, while the Americans are suffering, MAGA Republicans are fighting to give immunity to the stone slab industry so that if you die from silicosis, you can't sue. Okay, so that's what the MAGA Republicans were doing. Let me show you how the Democrats fought back right now. So one of the things that the MAGA Republicans brought up in their J6 subcommittee is they wanted to spread lies about the DC pipe bomber who was there on January 6th, Brian Cole. But as Jamie Raskin points out, Brian Cole voted for Donald Trump twice. This guy's a Trumper who will likely now be covered by Donald Trump's pardon, because the pardon was for anybody regarding January 6th who was involved in or around the January 6th events, as Donald Trump called it, and Trump didn't want to call it an insurrection, so he spoke about it in very broad terms. So Brian Cole and his lawyer have already said they will be saying the pardon impacts them, any and all events surrounding January 6th. He was there with the pipe bomb on January 6th. He's a Trump supporter. But I want to show you this first, because sitting in the front row, as I mentioned before, Stewart Rhodes, the Oath Keeper, who was convicted of seditious conspiracy and was pardoned by Donald Trump, or received a commutation, rather, by Donald Trump. Congressmember Moskowitz rips this guy to shreds and rips the MAGA Republican to shreds and say, hey, look, we've got an Oath Keeper here. He's in the VIP section right now. Look, everybody, what the MAGA Republicans are doing, putting Rhodes in the VIP section. Watch Congressmember Moskowitz. This is brilliant work, and this is how it's done. Let's play this clip right here.
By the way, the head of the Oath Keepers is here with us in the audience. Stewart Rhodes is here today. It's not every day, of course. Not every day, of course, you have to meet someone who was convicted of seditious conspiracy against the United States. Hasn't happened in 30 years. Of course, sitting in the front row in the reserved section, which is controlled by my colleagues across the aisle. Not sure why he's here. I don't know if he's here to tell us about the Oath Keepers' secret handshake, or what treehouse they meet in, or whether girls are allowed in. I've always wondered that about the Oath Keepers. But yeah, he's here. I mean, I don't know. You have any questions, my colleagues across the aisle, for the head of the Oath Keepers that's sitting in the reserved section of this hearing? I mean, he wasn't pardoned. He's still convicted of seditious conspiracy. Something you guys say didn't happen. right? There wasn't an insurrection. I don't know how you get convicted of seditious conspiracy.
Next up, you have the ranking member, Congressmember Jamie Raskin, and he talks about some of the lingering questions that MAGA Republicans would like to cover up. Play this clip.
Mr. Chairman, there are some lingering questions. Most of them could be answered by Donald Trump, who's never once testified under oath about what he did on January 6th, other than sit on his hands and probably order hamburgers and French fries while he watched the whole scene on TV unfold. Did nothing to send out the National Guard under his unilateral direct control in the District of Columbia. And if you don't believe me, look it up, Ms. Hagman. Look it up. The president controls the National Guard in the District of Columbia. I'll bet you a lunch with your former occupant of your office, your predecessor, Ms. Cheney, who's somebody who brought great honor to this institution. And I'll tell you this. And I'll tell you this. The truth is a resilient thing. We're not going to put up with a pack of lies in this subcommittee and a bunch of conspiracy theories. We're not. We're not. So have at it. Throw what you want against the wall, but you better learn the first lesson they teach lawyers when you pass the bar. When you go to court, you better bring the evidence with you.
Then former January 6th prosecutor Michael Romano, who was called in as a witness by the Democrats there, as I said, who took control of this hearing, he starts to talk about how some of the rioters now have received the message from Donald Trump that if you do violence on behalf of Trump, you get a pardon. Here, play this clip.
Is there any case in your mind that you prosecuted or you oversaw which stands out in your mind as a particularly troubling one from the standpoint of public safety?
Absolutely. The one that stands out in my mind is the case of Daniel Ball, who fought with officers at the Lower West Terrace Tunnel, the site of some of the worst violence that day, and then threw an explosive into the tunnel. He threw an explosive in, injuring officers, causing some to lose hearing. There's no world in which a person who uses an explosive device against police in close quarters should be pardoned.
Well, and to be clear, did President Trump investigate his file and determine that he had shown repentance and remorse, that he would no longer be a danger to the public?
I don't see how he could have, given when the pardons came out.
I mean, it came out on the first day, and it was en masse. It was everybody. The most serious criminals who leveled the most egregious violence against police officers, and those people who were just mere trespassers, who just went in and maybe damaged some property or something else like that. All of them were swept in together. All of them treated exactly the same way. Well, what do you think, in general, the meaning of those pardons are going to be for American public safety and government going forward?
I think the pardons are damaging to public safety. The pardons are damaging to confidence in the rule of law and in the ability of the Justice Department to fight crime. And I think that some of the rioters have received the message that violence done on behalf of the president or in support of his administration is permitted and encouraged.
Here's what Congressmember Raskin had to say about the January 6th pipe bomb suspect. Play this clip.
Now, of course, the prosecution of Brian Cole, the pipe bomb suspect, remains ongoing. The full facts of the case have not yet emerged. And under our criminal justice system, of course, he's presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so this hearing is at best premature. I hope certainly it does nothing to recklessly endanger the prosecution of Mr. Cole. But here's what we do know. We know that Brian Cole voted for Donald Trump twice. We know that, in his own words, he was inspired and incited by Donald Trump's big lie, the pathetic lie that the 2020 election had been stolen, a lie that has been debunked and repudiated by more than 60 different federal and state court decisions across the land, and every court that's looked at it, and of course was rejected by the Congress of the United States as well. Mr. Cole told investigators he was in D.C. because he was going to protest in support of Donald Trump. He told the FBI that he believed the narrative that Trump had spread, and if the election was indeed tampered with, quote, someone needs to speak up, right? Well, like the thousands of Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, Mr. Cole did something more than just speak up. He set what the FBI concluded were viable explosive devices on Capitol Hill, mere feet away from where thousands of people live and work and drop their kids off at daycare. It is only due to the heroic actions of the Capitol Police and a watchful bystander that these devices were discovered and disarmed. Make no mistake, Mr. Cole's political goals appear to have been no different than those of the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and hundreds of cop beaters and rioters who stormed the Capitol to foment violence on that day, to terrorize the police, but most of all, to stop the steal and overturn the election that was certified in the United States of America, with Joe Biden defeating Donald Trump by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College.
And more from Jamie Raskin right here, talking about Donald Trump's pardon likely allowing Mr. Cole, the suspected pipe bomber, let me be very clear, I'm a lawyer, the suspected pipe bomber, to get a full pardon. Here, play this clip.
Trump granted a, quote, a full, complete, and unconditional pardon to all individuals convicted of offenses related to events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Mr. Cole is convicted. Would he be covered by this unprecedented corrupt pardon offered by Donald Trump, who incited the insurrection against the Union? Well, Mr. Cole's lawyer definitely seems to think so. President Trump and his DOJ have already attempted to legitimize violence against the police on that day. Is it their position that the pardon extends to Mr. Cole as someone who was involved in the events that occurred near the Capitol? Or is it their position that it's okay to beat police officers with Confederate battle flags, Donald Trump flags, American flags, tase them, haze them, vilify them, demonize them, taunt them, trample them, kick them, and punch them, but they draw the line at planting an explosive device? I'd be very interested to know the answer to that. It's been obvious for quite some time the pipe bomber was motivated by the same lies and violent rhetoric as everybody else who followed Donald Trump's orders on that day. And to avoid that reality, Republicans have deployed conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory about the pipe bomber. Donald Trump falsely claimed the FBI knew who it was all along. Dan Bongino, the former podcaster turned former FBI deputy director, who recently quit for mysterious reasons, told us that this was a setup. He said it was an inside job. Just a few months ago, The Blaze wrote a ludicrous article pinning the pipe bombs on an innocent Capitol police officer on the basis of how she walked, which unsurprisingly was quickly exposed for the pure concoction it was, but that did not stop multiple Republican members of Congress, including, I'm afraid to say, you, Mr. Chairman, at least I'm told, although I haven't seen what you said directly, but certainly multiple members of Congress promoted the article and its authors and the false and dangerous idea that it was a former Capitol police officer who planted those bombs, an idea that continues to fester in the deepest and darkest corners of the extremist internet. Mr. Chairman, I think that the Capitol Police officer deserves an apology from any member of Congress who participated in that particular lie and conspiracy theory.
Next, I want to share this with you as Jamie Raskin exposes these MAGA Republicans further. Here he shows the Republicans blocking an amendment to require public notice and an opportunity to comment on Donald Trump wanting to pay himself $230 million from his own Department of Justice because Donald Trump says that he was persecuted by the DOJ regarding the January 6th insurrection. So Trump wants the DOJ, your taxpayer dollars, to pay Donald Trump to settle with himself. Play this clip.
So my amendment essentially imposes the same new onerous procedural hurdles and constraints that are advanced in the bill to President Trump's sly effort to get the American people to pay him $230 million under the Federal Tort Claims Act. You'll recall he filed an administrative complaint with his own underlings at DOJ saying he was owed $230 million because of the prosecutions brought against him and because of the judicial search warrant that was executed against him at Mar-a-Lago, a perfectly lawful search warrant, which was not struck down or voided in any way. But he wants $230 million. And as we understand the process, the the number 2 at the Department of Justice could just write him that check for $230 million, which would be about half of what goes out annually to all Americans seeking relief under the Federal Tort Claims Act. It's just unheard of that these are settled in that way by the DOJ. So what would this do? It would simply say that the exact same procedures that would apply in this odd circumstance, which we think are unnecessary, but would apply in the context of the president trying to get a payment directly from the American people. And there, it's far more justified to establish more process because it's not governed by the APA generally. So even the president himself acknowledges the radical and unprecedented nature of the demand he made. He said at the time, and it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much money you're paying yourself in damages? Nope, we certainly haven't heard of any case like that. Everything about his lawsuit is strange, unprecedented, ill-based, flimsy, unconstitutional, and profoundly corrupt. The American people deserve the chance to comment in an open process on whatever settlement the Department of Justice might want to reach here. It is our money that's on the line. I urge all of my colleagues on the Democratic side and the Republican side to support this common sense amendment, and I yield back.
Now I want to turn to the silicosis hearing, where the MAGA Republicans want to give the stone industry full immunity. So if you get silicosis, you can't sue. And Congressmember Hank Johnson, a ranking member on this subcommittee, exposed the absurdity of granting legal immunity to artificial stone, a product that cures no disease and protects no national security interest, while blocking injured workers from their day in court. Play this clip.
We give immunity for some medicines and some vaccines, and those are highly regulated, and they go to market and directly benefit people's health. And we also give immunity to some defense contractors who are creating weapons for use in war to protect our national security. Are there any national security implications to the manufacture of fake stone, which your company, by the way, is the largest fake stone manufacturer in the United States by far? Is there any critical national defense contribution that the company makes with this product?
Yeah, first of all, this new term, fake stone, I'm not unfamiliar with, but I understand.
Let me, is there any, it doesn't cure any diseases or anything like that, does it?
Yeah, I'm here to tell you
call it
that
artificial stone, I call it fake stone. I don't think there's much of a difference.
Ranking member Johnson then shares the story of Mitchell Bouwer, a Georgia stone shop owner whose lungs were destroyed by silicosis. Here, play this clip.
I'm here today for Mitchell Bouwer, a Georgia resident who's owned and worked at a stone fabrication shop for over 2 decades. Mitch and his son Jacob, who started working in the shop as a teenager, have both been diagnosed with silicosis. Because of shortness of breath and constant fatigue, Mitch is no longer able to work. Workers like Mitch and Jacob have every right to go to court and ask for justice from those who caused them harm. And it is unconscionable to propose that we take that right away from them.
And I want you to hear this opening statement by Jamie Raskin, the ranking member, who goes into detail about what the watch this, because he lays it out calm, confidently. And I just want you to think about this. The MAGA Republican priorities versus the Democratic priorities. MAGA Republicans are out there fighting to prevent people from getting into court, stopping them from suing, and giving full immunity to the stone industry, the artificial stone industry. Here, play this clip.
Thank you very much, Chairman Issa, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. The House Judiciary Committee, of course, is not a jury. We're not a courtroom. And when we do our work right, we're facilitating the proper execution of the law and the protection of the rights of the people in courts across the land. That's our proper role. I feel like we're somehow being invited to be jurors today, but in any event, I'm happy to learn about a very serious workplace-related injury that's taking place in the country. Acute silicosis is a disease that renders your lungs useless. You struggle to breathe as fluid fills your lungs up, cutting off your oxygen supply. There's no cure for it. If you don't get $1 million double lung transplant, you effectively drown on dry land. Even the lucky people who get an organ transplant can extend their lives only by a few years. Silicosis is a killer. It's contracted when workers who fabricate artificial stone inhale nanoparticles that settle in the lungs. They're so small and so plentiful in artificial stone that they can escape any respirator and evade any protections designed for avoiding harms from silica in natural stone, like wet saws. Medical experts who treat silicosis patients agree that the only safe way to cut artificial stone is to wear a full hazard suit or to have machine-only fabrication, neither of which is apparently yet technically or economically feasible. And I confess I knew nothing about any of this before this hearing was scheduled. But as I researched this horrid disease, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that our colleagues were suddenly focused on a severe health crisis afflicting working-class craftsmen across America. I simply assumed they were moved by the same headlines and articles I was reading, like one saying, Southern California man with silicosis wins lawsuit against makers of artificial stone slabs, or jury finds stone companies at fault in lawsuit by countertop cutter sick with silicosis. And California workers who cut countertops are dying of an incurable disease. Alas, I'd fallen victim to magical thinking. Our colleagues were getting involved in this rather esoteric matter, not to help the workers, but to help the industry they work in, and specifically the Trump megadonor, who is the only major domestic manufacturer of this artificial stone and is working like Houdini to escape liability for any and all of the injuries caused by the business that he's involved in. We are here for one reason and one reason only, because the jury system and because American tort law are actually working for the people who work in this field right now. The workers are getting extremely sick, and courts are finding that artificial stone manufacturers are at least partially at fault for it. So what do my colleagues across the aisle propose to do? Do they want to ban artificial stone? That's what they did in Australia as an inherently dangerous substance. No. Do they think we should prosecute the artificial stone CEOs for a deliberate or negligent failure to warn workers, as Spain did in 2023? No. Do they want to let our American court system do what it does best and hear claims on a case-by-case basis under the general principles of American tort law and products liability? No. They want, as I understand it here, and I would love to be corrected, they want to immunize the big, primarily foreign-owned manufacturers from being held accountable for the results of this process in our court system. I'll close with this thought, Mr. Chairman. There was a brief fleeting moment when our colleagues across the aisle struck the pose of being the party of the working man. I remember it well. Donald Trump promised in 2016, 5-10 years from now, we'll be a different party. You're going to have a workers' party. On the campaign trail in 2024, now Vice President J.D. Vance told a crowd, we need a leader who's not in the pocket of big business, but answers to the working man, union and non-union alike. Even just 2 months ago, long after this fantasy had passed for most people. Vance said in an interview with Breitbart News, we've got a lot of working class voters who frankly don't care what was Republican orthodoxy 25 years ago. They're pushing the party in a different direction. Well, my friends, if anybody wants to hang on to the fading embers of the idea that the GOP is the party of the working class, this hearing should put an end to that fantasy. Immunizing employer corporations who repeatedly, knowingly subject workers to the kinds of hazards involved in this process and then want to escape all liability is not an agenda that would be embraced by the party of the working class. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
And finally, let me turn to the Senate Judiciary Committee right here, where you have Senator Whitehouse questioning Professor Vladeck, who I'm sure you know. How many senior Trump officials have made threats against judges? Play this clip.
How many senior people in the administration have made threats against judges, both generally and specifically, from the president on down? When they make a decision disagreeing with them.
I mean, the number I can think of is 5, Senator, but that's, there's probably more. That's just what has been widely reported. And I think, it's worth stressing that the point, including the president, and it's worth stressing that the point is Stephen Miller, the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, the then Chief of Staff of the Justice Department, Chad Meiselas.
Then let's take a look at the Trump witnesses at the Senate Judiciary Committee when Senator Walsh cross-examines them. Play this clip.
Did President Biden win the election in 2020?
Joe Biden was certified as president and served 4 years as president.
All right, that's the line. So
that's the facts.
There's also a question that I'm asking that is different that you evaded answering, and that is, did President Biden win?
Well, I wasn't there to count the votes, but I know Joe Biden served 4 years as president.
All right. So is President Trump acting appropriately to assert that the election was stolen?
Political officials say all sorts of things.
And finally, Senator Whitehouse uses the judge's own words to describe the Trump DOJ in court. Play this clip.
Disingenuous arguments 5 times, bad faith arguments 5 times, unprecedented behavior, including, quote, concerted effort by the executive to smear and impugn individual judges who rule against it, being both unprecedented and unfortunate. That's a Trump appointee speaking about this administration's behavior. Shoddy work 3 times. DOJ losing credibility or being disrespectful, having lied. Willful and intentional noncompliance with orders, pretexts being offered, unconscionable arguments, nonsensical arguments.
Well, there you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. And thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.